You know, you've seen Jason Rantz on Fox and elsewhere, a very, very sharp gentleman. He also has my program on KTTH. He's a radio host and the program director there, and it's in the middle of Seattle. So he has seen close up what the hell's going on in these cities, Seattle among the worst. And he has seen what the Democrat Party does to these cities, his city, his hometown. And I thought it was very, very important that we have Jason on the program. He's What's Killing America, Inside the Radical Left's Tragic Destruction of Our Cities. I only have authors on this program who I believe in, to promote books that I've read and I believe in. Otherwise, I don't waste your time and I don't waste my time. What's Killing America? Jason Rantz, Inside the Radical Left's Tragic Destruction of Our Cities. Jason, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the time tonight.
You bet. So let's get started with this. You're in Seattle. You see what's happening. You're moved. You're thinking, you know, I can talk on the radio. I can go on TV, but I got to write about this. I got to put pen to paper. I've got to make the American people understand not just what they see on TV and what they see at the surface level, but who is destroying our city. So I want to give you an opportunity. Explain this.
Yeah, it's important to understand the why. Why do folks who are so far to one side of the aisle believe what they believe, and what is it that they're doing that's having such a destructive nature on our cities? And what I think is really important for folks to understand, and I used to get this as a host all the time, that people would say, I'm leaving Seattle because I'm sick of all the policies, I'm sick of what it's doing to my community, only to then a few years later say, okay, I moved and the policies followed. It's because these policies don't stay in the cities in which they originate, where the activists come from. They end up going everywhere, whether we're talking about housing and education to crime, drugs, and homelessness. It will follow. And if you do not understand the why and the what, you're not going to be able to push back and win any of these battles. And we've seen that time and time again. There are people right now who have no idea what's truly going on because they don't get the dots connected for them. Media, I think, does a really poor job at the local level of pointing to policy strategies. I can go outside right now and ask someone to define what harm reduction is or housing first. Not a single person will have even heard of either of those phrases. And yet those strategies are why we're seeing crime get out of control, drug use get out of control, and homelessness get out of control. And so how in the world are we supposed to push back if we don't actually know that?
Mm-hmm. And so when you wrote this book, it covers a lot of territory. How did you approach this? Because it's hard to prioritize what the problems are, particularly as you point out in the book, which is this is sort of a universal issue now, both in terms of ideology, execution, geography, all over the country. Yep. So how did you approach this?
I approached it by listening to the people who would call into the radio show. I would listen to the people who were complaining after I would go on Fox News and say, hey, you just talked about Chicago. Did you know that's happening right here in Atlanta? Or it's happening in D.C. or it's happening in my neighborhood? And then when you start to look around, it becomes really clear that we have ceded so much power to radicals. And they have taken that power to institutionalize all of these ideas. They have an ideology that is deeply destructive, and it's chaotic. Now, the good news, because they're passing legislation and policies, means we can actually walk that back. But when they institutionalize something, that means we all have to get organized. And there are so many people who just don't think that we can win these battles because it might take some sacrifices. They might think the system is rigged. But when you're able to decode the language of the left, which I do in What's Killing America, I think you're able to come up with a game plan. The fact of the matter is the issues of crime that are happening in Seattle, well, guess what? It's in San Francisco, it's in New York, Atlanta, D.C., Chicago, and everywhere else. And we know that it's unfolding the same way because it's based on the same policy. So at the same time as you guys are, at home listening, saying, man, crime is out of control, homelessness, I'm also paying a lot more to live in these cities. And even though I escaped, I'm paying more now that I live in the suburbs. Yet you're having a worse quality of life. And I think people are sick and tired of it. I don't think people view this as inherently political either, which is also good news for us, Conservatives could go up and actually have conversations with people and never even mention being conservative or Republican and still be able to convince Democrats to switch over, because I think Democrats and Republicans alike share the same goal. They want their kids to feel safe. They want to feel safe themselves. They want to live a meaningful life. And right now they feel like they can't. And frankly, they're right. What's happening in San Francisco right now is a city that is dying before our eyes. And I don't want that to become a reality for the places where people are listening right now.
But the Democrat leadership doesn't want great things for America. They demonstrate it every day.
Nope.
They institute policies that are destructive of the American people and our way of life, whether it is this climate change stuff or an open border and so forth. And so much of the government is on automatic. You know, it's this massive administrative state. And so you address this. So people are listening tonight. So what do we make of this? How do we, as we the people who basically have a vote and can organize and vote, what is the best way to confront this?
We confront this by understanding it and then actually speaking out and pushing back. It is so easy to pass things when you use language like they use on the left, where they claim that they're doing things because they're compassionate, that they're really caring about people, and they bully anyone who speaks up. But the fact of the matter is, and this is again is great news, there are way more people like us than there are of the radical left. And you and I talked about it on my show last week when we were discussing your book. Like, I don't think Democrat voters are the problem when it comes to the radical ideas. I think they're just falling for it. There's leadership that's truly radical. They're creating all the chaos and destruction. But I don't think everyone understands truly what's behind what's going on. And if all of us simply get together with shared information, with a shared goal, I guarantee we're going to see victories. And I go over some of the victories that we've already seen in my book. I mean, look at San Francisco, for example. Those were liberals who pushed back and got rid of Chesapeake. Those were liberals who stood up and said to the school board, no, we're not allowing you to do this to our kids. Those were victories not from conservatives. There's 17 conservatives in San Francisco. Those were progressives who said enough is enough. And it's because they finally understood, they were able to connect the dots on policy. And we're seeing in particular parental groups all around the country, Virginia is a great example, standing up and saying, no, we're not going to allow you to do this anymore. And so now we just have to take those victories and take some inspiration from it and realize that we can, in fact, do this. But it starts by having that foundation, understanding why the radical left believes what they believe and what exactly they're pushing while we decode the language. And I do that in What's Killing America.
Jason Rantz has a great book out, What's Killing America. You can get it at Amazon.com and anywhere else. But as a side point, Jason, with this debate tonight, I do smile, if not worse, when I hear all the advice that's being given to these candidates by people who have never run for office, they've never been in politics. They don't really have the pulse of the people necessarily. They need to do this, they need to do that. You know, your head would explode if you listen to all these people, no?
Yeah, no kidding. I think all you really need to do is just listen to people and actually hear what they have to say and pay attention and then try to figure out how you're going to solve some of these problems. And I think, you know, the good news for any of these potential candidates is that everyone is kind of experiencing the same thing, that their community is getting out of control with crime and drug use, that they're concerned about what's happening in schools. And I think that is, you know, that's actually one of the chapters in my book covering the indoctrination that's going on in schools. And
by the way, I especially like that chapter. So go ahead and hit on that.
Yeah, no, like the only positive that came out of the COVID lockdowns of schools was that parents got a better sense of what was being taught to their kids. They were there listening to the teacher and said, wait, what did she just say about white people and white supremacy? Like, we actually did get woke. They just got woke on something that the left doesn't want us to get woke about. We found out that there is an intentional attempt by the radical left educators to convince kids that this country is not worth fighting for, that this is not the best country in the world, that our police departments are filled with racists who are hunting down black people on the streets of America. I mean, there is a bunch of material that BLM, Black Lives Matter, that total fraud put together. The curriculum is getting in front of our kids every single year. There's not only just a week of action, though, and people think, okay, maybe I can counter program with my child for that week. No, it's continuing throughout the year, and it's not just happening in big cities. I have so many examples in the book of what's going on, like small towns in Nebraska, in Iowa, where we are teaching kids to hate the police. We're teaching black kids to hate the police. We're teaching white kids to feel like they're somehow responsible for a legitimate few bad apples. And when they get out of school, when they get into college, we already know what's going on there with the indoctrination. Understand, these are the future doctors and lawyers and politicians. These are the people who are going to lead this country. And right now, we've ceded so much power to radical educators to get in front of them and teach them why they shouldn't fight for this country. And that's how you get to transformative change. I mean, we heard Democrats say that. We heard the radical left say that. They never hid that position, right? They said we have to transform this country. We have to dismantle systems of oppression. They believe American institutions are systems of oppression. And that's precisely what they're trying to do, is they're trying to break them down and then rebuild. And in some cases, they've already been really successful. We just now have to fight back and take things back.
All right, Jason Rantz. I mean, he barely touched on the substance of the book. It's a fascinating book. It's a compelling book, What's Killing America. You can get it on Amazon.com, any major bookstore. It's available now. It just came out, brand new off the printing press. And I want to wish you a lot of luck with this, Jason. It's a very, very fine book. And take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me. Thank you so much.
Well, it is. And God bless. Take care of yourself.